Macca's Guides.
Hey guys, Macca here with a 100% full game walkthrough for the Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I am playing on Xbox and I'll be showing you all 14 achievements in this video for 1000 Gamerscore. You can tell by how long the video is, that is how long the game will take us, roughly an hour and a half, and we'll start from the main menu by starting a new game. Now this is a first-person kind of storytelling walking simulator type game. You'll be doing a variety of miscellaneous tasks, also solving mysteries, and going through the story in order to get to the very end. A lot of the achievements are going to be missable, and some of them won't be. We'll be grabbing all of them along the way, and I will be providing commentary throughout our entire journey here. I'm playing the game in sections, so I'm only going to be doing like a section at a time. You'll see the whole video edited together, but I don't quite know my personal opinion on the game quite yet. I'll talk about my opinion on the game at the end of the video as we wrap it up. So we'll start the game right here, and there are a couple things I'm going to do right out of the gate to kind of make the viewing experience better for you guys. And you'll see that coming up here once we gain kind of control of our character. The first thing I'm going to do is pause the game and go to options. For controls, you can obviously turn up and down your camera smoothing. I'm going to put camera smoothing on medium. I'm going to turn off my head bob so that my head doesn't move too much when I run. And I'm going to put a crosshair in the middle of my screen so that you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. You can also invert your controls and stuff like that. But once you're happy with the controls, the graphics, and the sound and whatnot, I also have subtitles on. Once you're happy with all the settings, you'll spawn right here in front of these train tracks. And the first achievement we'll go for is called the tunnel. What you'll want to do is turn around and you'll see a tunnel right behind you. And basically you have to run through this tunnel. Just keep running. It'll take about 30 seconds for us to reach the end. Once we reach the end, we'll grab an achievement that, like I said, was called the tunnel. Most achievements in this game are worth 50 to 60 Gamerscore, I believe. There's a couple that might have a little bit more. And you'll see them all along the way. Just from the very beginning, though, you'll want to turn around and run through the tunnel. And once you reach the end of the tunnel, you'll notice that this is the exact same place as we started. So whichever way you go through the tunnel, you end up at the same part of the game. So now the first thing we want to do in the game is trigger 5 traps, and we need to do this in order to kind of remember or like, you know, get enough clues for something. So we'll walk to the right towards these trees, and we'll have this swinging trap, and we'll have to hold A on it to sense it. After we do that, we can kind of walk behind it over these rocks and look to our right a little bit. You'll see a second trap, and you'll want to hold that in order to get 2. Now we can kind of head back to where we came from, back to the swinging trap, and kind of keep hugging the right side here, just past these rocks. And what we're looking for is another trap in the ground this time. So here is a third trap. Set it off and sense it in order to get 3 out of 5. There's more than 5 traps, by the way. You should be able to find 6 or 7 of them. Across the railroad tracks from this trap, you should be able to find another one in the floor. This one's a little bit harder to spot, but you should be able to kind of spot a little bit of a hole in the ground right there for a bear trap. That should be 4 out of 5. And then we'll kind of continue along towards the tunnel where we started, along the left-hand side, and you'll find another trap in the ground. This one's like a leg trap from Vietnam. And once you find all 5 traps here, just hold A, and you'll kind of go and have this vision. Once you're in this vision, go forward, look down and near the tree, and read the note. You can press Y to see the text version of the note, but once you accept the note, you'll unlock another achievement here.
But Gramp, I wrote something for you.
That's real nice. Thank you. Just leave it. I'll read it later.
Alright, there we go with another unlock. The achievements pop pretty fast in this game overall. Now from this tree, we kind of want to walk like through it, forward, and back onto the railroad tracks. You can sprint by holding LB in this game. You might want to familiarize yourself with the controls, although they're very simple. Once we reach the train tracks, look down the train tracks to see the kind of wooden bridge, and you'll just have to cross the bridge.
Red Creek Valley. Seemed like a quiet.
The game looks quite nice, actually, especially if you have a 4K TV with good colors and stuff. You should be able to get a decent amount out of this game in terms of the visuals.
Warned me about that. Warned me not to be fooled by what I saw here. He didn't need to worry. I'd worked dozens of cases, hundreds. This would be my last one.
Now, as you approach the rail car, you'll want to look at the front of it, and as you're kind of inspecting it, you'll see all these different clues that kind of come up based on where you're looking. But just keep kind of looking around, and eventually you'll see crankshaft and, you know, a couple of other things here. And you'll see, you can kind of skip this, actually. It's not required. But if you're looking here, you kind of have to, like, focus the word. And if you focus the word, which will focus somewhere around here. Anywhere. So, there, somewhere here. There we go. It kind of focuses differently every time you play, kind of depending on where you're standing. But if you can focus the word, you can hold A and get a clue as to what you're looking for. You can skip these clues, and we probably will be skipping a majority of them later on. But that's kind of how that mechanic will work. So we'll need a crankshaft that goes there. And the crankshaft is near some water, which is obviously down there. We'll get there when we get there, though. What I want you to do next, if you want to, you know, play along with me here, is continue following the train tracks. And look down to make sure you don't, you know, pass this. But you'll see some ropes that are tied up on the train track. Make sure you inspect those, and you can move on quite quickly from them. Then you'll see some bloody bits on the train track. Inspect those as well. Continue forward. You'll see some dried grass. Inspect the dried grass. You'll also see a gas canister off to the right side of the tracks. Inspect that as well. Now what we want to do is kind of back up a little bit from the dried grass and look to the left. So that's the dried grass. To the left of it, we'll see this tree stump with like 2 tiers on it. And just to the left of it on the ground, we can inspect and find a rock. So make sure you inspect that rock and take it. Now continue past the dried grass in the canister. And on the left side of the track, you should find this kind of, you know, I don't know, pile of rocks with a sign next to them. And you'll see this small indentation here. And keep inspecting that. And the rock we just picked up will be put into the hole. Now what we'll want to do is return towards the bloody bits on the train track. And you can see that there's a little bit of a trail of blood here. If you follow them down, you can find this guy right here, and you'll want to inspect him as well. Now, next up, we'll continue down the hill here, follow the path kind of by him, and continue forward. And on the beach here, you should be able to find the crankshaft sitting next to the water right here. Now that we have the crankshaft, we can return back to the train car and attach the crankshaft to the front of the train car, or the rail car. So you'll want to do that next. Now what you'll want to do is remember where that dried grass was, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if you can try to remember kind of where that dried grass was, it would be helpful. Once we return to the rail car, though, look at the front of it, and now that we have the crankshaft, we should be able to kind of add it to the front. And we can tap A, and tap A until you hear the motor turn on. Now that the motor's turned on, we can enter via the side and hold back on the left stick in order to make the train car go backwards. What we'll want to do is park this rail car. I keep switching between train car and rail car. I don't really know the difference, to be honest. But what we'll want to do is park this train car on the patch of dried grass. So it's kind of hard to remember where it was. But if you look out the window as you're backing up, you'll notice the path there to the body. And then there'll be this really thick tree right after it, and you kind of want to park kind of right next to this tree. And you can always exit out and kind of double check your parking job here to make sure the train car is parked on the dried grass. But once you do that, you should be able to go back down to the body and interact with it, and hold A in order to start this kind of, you know, detective mystery thing. If you take a step back, you should be able to see these 6 orbs of light that come out, and they disperse across the map. So try to keep an eye on where they are. They're mostly at the, you know, at all the items we inspected earlier. That's where they're going to be. So what you want to do is interact with all 6 of these kind of spirals of light. At each one, you'll kind of uncover a memory. And we have to uncover all of the kind of potential steps in this murder before we can kind of piece together the, you know, what happened. So we have one there, one there, one there, one over there. We have one by the train car, which isn't there right now until we interact with this. And then we have one by the rock over here. Now that we have all of them uncovered, we have to tag them in chronological order. So the order goes as follows. All the way up the train tracks, you'll see the kind of kid here on the train tracks. That's going to be number 1. Next up, what we're going to do is go to where the rock was put into the dirt. And that's number 2. Him deciding to pick up the rock. Then they have a conversation next to the train for number 3. You can tag these out of order, by the way. I just want to show an order that kind of makes sense for you guys who are following along and actually want to kind of enjoy the game. For step 4, it's the guy kind of on the side of the train tracks. For step 5, it's them kind of dragging the body down. And then for step 6, it's him kind of executing the body. Once you have all of those, you should be able to press Y to visualize, and it'll take you through each of the steps. And if you did it right, it'll conclude, you know, it'll make sense at the end, and you'll solve the case. So if you do want to watch, you can watch, but you can also press Y to skip through each scene until the final one, which is what I just did. And you do have to watch the final scene, which just happened on screen there. If you did it correctly, all of the orbs of light should kind of, you know, dissipate. And come back into the body. And then one orb of light should kind of leave the body, and you can try to kind of follow it. Although basically we're going down the hill towards the beach where we found the crank. And then following along this path until we get interrupted by a short cutscene.
I'm sick too. I can feel the sleeper in my head.
Then fight it. I have to destroy the room.
Corvus, I'm sorry. Ethan.
Oh no.
I can't let you do that.
Alright, once that happens, you should kind of snap out of the detective mode and unlock your 3rd achievement for the game.
Ethan's family against him. The grandfather was trying to resist.
We can also walk forward as this guy talks. So just kind of continue forward along the path.
Experience. Because the old are tired. Their hate is less useful.
There it goes. All right. So for this section, there's a lot of trees. You might get lost, and that's fine. If you do get lost, try to return to this point and then try to follow along with the video if you do need it. But from this point, what we want to do is go left past these rocks and kind of turn a little bit more left, and you'll see a small opening in the trees, and there's a tall hill you can climb, and that's what we're going to go for right now, actually. And you want to reach the top of this hill where there's a bit of a clearing. And just head straight kind of through the middle. You'll see these 2 large trees and a large clearing. That means you're in the right spot. You'll see the sun off to your right-hand side as well. But as you push forward, you'll see a couple of rocks, And on one of the rocks here, you can inspect this pine cone. Make sure you do that, but as you inspect it, it ends up being a grenade. We will need this grenade in order to do the Easter egg later on in the game. So this is part 1 of the Easter egg. Put it in your inventory. Now turn around, and we're going to head to where we kind of came from. And let's try to establish some landmarks here. As you're coming down the hill, you want to stick to your left. Not like all the way to your left, but kind of to your left. You'll notice that there is like a large rock that looks a bit like a ramp in the middle there. And just to the right of that, at the foot of that rock that looks a bit like a ramp, you'll notice this post with 4 lights on it. Now, the order for your lights is going to be random, but luckily this is pretty easy. All you want to do is click a light with A, and it'll either turn blue or red. If it's red, it's wrong, but just keep clicking it until you find one that's blue. And that means that's number 1 in your sequence. And then try the next one. So for me, it's going to be the bottom one, then the top one, and then I just kind of take a guess. So just kind of keep doing this until you figure out your sequence. It shouldn't be too hard. And eventually, once you get the right sequence, you'll have this memory where there's this astronaut guy running away from you. And you'll have to keep chasing him. You're not really on a timer, but you do really want to pay attention to which direction he runs, as it can be quite easy to lose him in this thick forest. So as you approach him, I would recommend like not sprinting too hard, so you can really keep an eye on where he ended up going. If you kind of lose track of him, unfortunately, you kind of just have to keep wandering the forest until you find him. He does have the same path every time. However, I would imagine it's pretty tough to follow this path along with the video when the forest is so densely populated here. As you can see, though, as I approach him, I kind of keep a little bit of distance so I can see which way he decides to run. That's always the direction he's going to end up going. Eventually, he will reach this area with a little bit of a clearing in the trees. Kind of a large open field. And he will get picked up by a spaceship. If you couldn't tell, this is kind of a story, not reality. But once he gets picked up by the spaceship, you also want to get picked up by the spaceship. So, walk forward into it, and once you kind of get near it, it'll teleport you inside. You can kind of look out the windows for a little bit here and enjoy the scenery. You notice that there was a little bit of sky. Now we're like traveling the galaxy. Possibly this is a wormhole of sorts. There's really nothing you can do here. You just kind of wait until it's, until it's over. I think this sequence maybe lasts 40 seconds or so. And then you'll end up in beautiful space, which is actually quite a pleasure to look at. But eventually, if you turn around, there's this little panel behind you that opens with a piece of paper inside. You'll want to read that piece of paper. You can obviously go to text form if you want, but just accept the piece of paper, and that's one of the stories. And this one's called Fangs, which will unlock the Fangs achievement or trophy. The achievement will unlock immediately, but you're free to read through the pieces of paper if you so desire. There's also this little like book cover with some vandalism on it, so you can pick that up as well. So after that, we can kind of turn around, and we should be able to spot this kind of train station, and we'll run towards it and then kind of past it in order to proceed with the game. You'll notice a path next to it, and we'll want to kind of follow that path. You can kind of follow the train tracks as well, but the train tracks end up kind of veering off, so you'll want to stick to the path, which will take you towards the bridge. Stay on this path for about a minute until we get to the bridge, and then you'll want to cross most of the bridge, stopping near the end to do a quick task, which I will make sure to remind you about.
Large pieces of this country were thrown away, doomed to become, and then remain, the worst versions of themselves. Beneath all that rot, dark things grow.
Now, as you're crossing the bridge on the right-hand side, you'll notice these small kind of indentations or like viewing points. Make sure you stop at the last vantage point, which is going to be this one right here. So before you cross the bridge, make sure you stop here and look over the edge. You'll have a prompt that says throw grenade. So once you see this prompt right here, you might have to, focus it into the right area. Throw the grenade, and you will throw the grenade from your inventory that we picked up earlier. Now, there was a weird visual glitch with my game that just happened, but essentially, your character will throw a grenade into the water, and then the grenade will explode, and that's the second part of the Easter egg achievement, which we will be grabbing later. For some reason, my character didn't throw the grenade, although yours definitely should, and we'll make sure to grab the achievement nonetheless. Now you can continue on down the bridge. You'll notice two houses, one to your left and one to your right. Each of the houses has its own achievement, and we'll be grabbing both, starting off with the left house. So what we need to do for the left house is basically reconstruct it room by room until we successfully recreate it, and then we'll be able to kind of grab an achievement. I'll do it quite slowly because it gets a little confusing. But what you want to do is start off by entering the house from the front, and you'll want to read the document on the table right here, and then you can put it down. And you'll notice these kind of blue doors, and as you approach them, for this one you can't, but as you kind of go through them, there will be other blue doors. And what you have to do is go up to a blue door, so we'll start with the left one first, and you have to swap the rooms until you have the room that goes in that area. So for here, there's a little bit of a dining area. You can go in and out. Then the other room here near the stairs will be this one with a kind of small side room with a small set of stairs. Then we can go to the top of those stairs, and we want to swap it until we get a room with a barred up window in front of us, as so. Then we can go back to kind of where we came from and head up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, look to your left, and for this room, what you want is a room that extends out to the left with vertical kind of wooden panels in the windows. The room that connects to that is a room with more vertical panels as follows. Then the room that connects to this is the staircase that we originally came from. Then we can go back all the way upstairs to the attic, locate the last blue door, and swap the rooms until we get the attic room with the slanted roof. If we did the entire house correctly, we should now be able to turn around and look in the door we came from. And we should find kind of a secret room, but since it's not there, that means we missed something along the way. So let's quickly try to locate it. All right, so here it is. So in the middle floor next to the stairs, there is this long hallway. In this hallway, we'll want to use this room right here. And this last room right here is this room. And now once we do that, we can turn around and find the secret room, read the document, and that should be an achievement right there for kind of figuring out the magician's room. Hopefully that wasn't too hard to follow. If it was, kind of start from the beginning and work your way through the house again. Maybe change the video speed to 1.25 times speed, or rather 0.75 times speed, to slow it down as I go, so you can kind of, make sure you match all the rooms together. All right, so now that we are done with this, we can open the door. We can follow the stairs downstairs and head out the front door. And we can now go to the other house kind of across. In this next house, we'll have to basically visit every room and trigger every piece of dialogue in order to get another achievement to unlock. We'll want to enter from the back entrance, though. Before doing anything, I would recommend first picking up this picture, reading it. You can inspect who's in the picture and then put it back down. And then we're going to go from basically room to room and make sure we trigger every piece of dialogue and stay in the room until the dialogue's kind of done. You can match up your dialogue with my dialogue that's on screen with the subtitles. There's no real specific order you want. You just have to trigger kind of every room. And I'm kind of doing it in the fastest order, or an order that kind of makes the most sense.
Ethan disturbed the sleeper. He must be punished.
You can now go across the bottom floor into the dining room.
Talk to your son.
This house should look pretty familiar to you.
Said he found some secret room.
AKA, it's the exact same layout as the house we just built in the other house there. We can now go upstairs and kind of go to the left.
They're getting worse. They keep talking about this thing, this sleeper.
I know. What I don't know is if it's real or not.
Progress around the loop here, back into the main area, and then make sure before we go into the attic to visit these rooms over here.
Leave the boy alone. I see how you've been looking at him.
You don't even know, do you? You have no idea what's going on. You have to help us. It's the only way. It wants Ethan. You're crazy.
Again, there's nothing really specific happening. It's just make sure you visit kind of like every zone of every room to trigger a short dialogue. Once you reach the attic, make sure you go into like the final attic room.
It's not my fault.
If you visited every room, this should be your last one, and the achievement should unlock on screen sometime around this point.
His family blamed him.
There it goes.
Whatever it was,
As soon as it unlocks, we can leave the home.
his family was convinced that hurting him would solve their problems. Would soothe
On your way out of the house, use the back door that we took to enter,
Carter's was still
and just go straight through the path, and we'll go up a hill. Again, I'm sprinting with LB, or the left bumper. Next up, we'll end up at a church, and we'll have to solve our next murder. I'll kind of do all the steps before... I'll do the steps a little bit out of order this time to kind of save a lot of time for us. Once you reach the top of the hill, you should notice the church structure, though. You want to enter the church from the backside here. It's technically like the front entrance. There's only one entrance. You shouldn't get too confused here. As you enter, take a 90-degree turn to your right to find a hallway. It's a little dark in here, but at the end of the hallway, you should find an oil lantern. Make sure you take it and pick it up. Now head back outside from where we came. Directly in front of you, there should be some graves. And if you kind of go a little bit to your left, you should notice that one of these has a small crow statue kind of at the bottom of it. I'm not sure if this is random. It's been in the same spot for me every time I've played, but I'm not 100% sure. But it's kind of beside this tree. There should be a crow next to this gravesite. And then we can continue forward to the right. We'll notice a trail. The trail will have an inspectable piece of thing called Signs of Struggle. We can then walk forward, and we'll see a wheelbarrow wheelbarrow, and we'll want to interact with that. Right next to the wheelbarrow, there is a small structure with a kind of something on the side there. We'll want to also inspect that. And then we'll want to go inside of here. It gets pretty dark in here, but at the bottom of the steps, take a 90-degree turn to your left, and you'll be able to inspect a small item on the wall. And at that point, you can fix the item with a crow. So that's what we want to do. Now that we've fixed the item with the crow, we can pull the handle, and the crows will spark a flame, which will reveal our victim here. Once we reveal the victim, inspect the middle of his chest to find a dagger. Before we go do anything further, you want to go back out here, and just to your right as you exit, you should find a tree stump. Inspect that tree stump, and you should be able to put the dagger inside of the tree stump. Now we should be able to look a little bit to our left. You'll notice a couple steps going up, but before kind of going up there, you'll want to interact with this oil lantern and inspect it, and you'll be able to put down the oil lantern you found from inside the church here. Now that we've done that, we can... Sorry about that. Terrible aiming. You can return back down into this Vandergriff, where we turned on the fire here. And you can finally hold A to inspect and solve this murder. I believe this guy's name is Chad Vandergriff. Kind of moving around really quick sometimes gets things to trigger a little bit faster. But hold A onto him until you get that blue tint, and now we can go for solving some stuff. The orbs of light will exit his body. There are 5 orbs of light this time, and they go as follows. There's 2 right in front of you as you exit. There's one 90 degrees to the left down the path. And then from this one, if you turn around and kind of go the opposite way from the middle there, go up the steps, you should be able to find 2 more at the top of these steps, one to the left, one to the right. Now, the order for them goes as follows. The first one here is this group, this little argument happening in front of the church. So take that as number 1. Now we can return back to the center area. And for number 2, we want to use the group in front of the small building. For number 3, we want to use the group kind of in the middle of the path. For number 4, we want to continue past and go kind of down the hill a little bit. This is going to be number 4. And then number 5 is the last one that remains at the top of the stairs to the right. Once we have these locked in, you should be able to press Y in order to visualize. If you've done it correctly, you can press Y to skip through the scenes and get to the last scene in order to kind of see the finale or how the, how the murder ends up actually happening. Obviously, you can just watch through each individual step too if you don't want to, skip those story elements.
It's not right.
Once you've done it correctly, you'll have a small conversation here in front of you, which you'll have to sit through for about 30 to 40 seconds, upon which it completes. You'll unlock another achievement or trophy here.
I'll use the tunnel near the gate. Just keep Mom away from me, all right? She's sick. We're all sick.
The sleeper must not sleep. Ethan disturbed something. Whatever it was, it got out, into the air, and into the minds of his family.
And there it goes. Now what we'll want to do is exit this building and take a sharp left turn. and kind of hog the left side here. And you'll have to veer off the path a little bit. And then you'll enter into this kind of forest with a lot of leaves on the ground and just kind of run into the forest. Doesn't really matter which direction you run exactly. But you'll start having these visions with this white light and basically just continue walking forward into the white light. And every 5 seconds to 10 seconds, you'll have a kind of flash happen and you'll be brought to a new kind of scene. You just kind of have to continue walking forward. And from what I understand, these scenes are kind of random every time. So your order of scenes might not be the same order as my scenes happening on screen. But as long as you're walking forward, we should both end this part of the game at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense.
Does death bring peace or suffering? Do you feel victory when your words cause pain? Would you prefer anonymity over notoriety? Do you love for yourself or for others?
All right, and eventually you'll end up having one last vision where you'll end up in front of a tent, and you can read the document on the ground. Once you inspect that, you'll get a short story and unlock your next achievement or trophy, and it'll kind of bring you back into the real world.
That's what people respond to. Reality.
Now, for those of you tagging along, I do want to do a quick achievement check. So currently we are at 460 out of 1,000 with 8 out of 14 achievements. We've also done the first 2 steps of the Easter egg, which is one of the achievements. Okay, so after reading the note, you kind of want to look up and then to the right of the tent, and you'll notice that there's a kind of hill in the distance that leads up, and we'll want to go to that hill. It basically leads back up to the church, which is kind of the direction we want to go for now. As we get up here, this should look familiar. Continue past this, up the small staircase, and keep following the path. Just past the church, if you look to the right, you should notice the path splits off and goes up a tall hill. We'll want to follow this path for the next 2 minutes or so. There will be some dialogue that automatically triggers during this path.
What do the dead have to say? You'd be surprised by how little they know. The dead can't explain what it means to be dead. They walk down stairs that disappear beneath their feet, headed for some bright blade of memory they'll never reach.
There's going to be a couple of really tall rocks in front of you with a right-hand turn. We're still following the path. We haven't left it, but this is kind of a good landmark. And as we approach the bottom of this hill, look to the left. You'll notice a couple trees with a little bit of an opening behind them. And if you pay attention closely, there should be an enter sign near some rocks where you can climb into a cave/mine. And obviously, we'll want to go in there. Now, once inside, we do have character control again. We'll want to walk forward. We'll do this kind of slowly so you guys don't get, we can sprint through here, but we want to make sure we don't get lost. There's a lot of tunnels to kind of get lost through. But at this first kind of drop, we want to take a right-hand turn. Then we want to take a left-hand turn and kind of follow the pathway. Keep following the pathway until we kind of go down a couple steps. And take a look on your first left, and you should notice an elevator. You'll want to go into that elevator and then go down right away. There's a couple more pathways you could get lost in, But overall, it's not as complicated as it may seem if you're kind of walking around. You should eventually stumble on that elevator and just ride it down. There's really no way to fail that section for the most part. And that'll begin a 30-second or so elevator ride down into the mine shaft. Okay, now once the doors open, we want to continue forward past the first intersection here. And in the second intersection, we want to turn 90 degrees to our right-hand side. If you turn, you should notice a very long kind of pathway with a bit of a blue tint at the end, and that's the right direction. Now, once in here, there's a lot of stuff. There's like an elevator, a pickaxe rack, and a whole bunch of stuff. What we'll want to do is kind of continue past and follow the train tracks or the rail car tracks until it turns to the right. You'll see some rocks. Behind those rocks, there is a small rail car, which we can enter. It's a little dark in this section. I have brightened it up, but you'll want to turn on the car and then pull back a little bit. You don't have to pull back too much, but you can hold back for 1 or 2 seconds and then push forward. We just need a little bit of extra speed in order to clear these rocks in front of us. After you clear the rocks, continue going forward and you'll do a small loop before you merge back onto the main tracks. After you merge back onto the main tracks here, you'll want to slow down a little bit, and you'll see something you can inspect on the left-hand side rather, and try to stop somewhere near it. Don't go too far, or you actually won't be able to inspect it. But inspect that item on the left of the tracks. It'll grab a pickaxe from the wall, and then we can actually not continue. Go back to the main room we kind of came from. In the large section of the room, you'll notice a large elevator shaft as well as a small button nearby, which we can press to call that elevator up. As that elevator is coming up, to the right side of it, we can find a pickaxe rack, which we can inspect and then place the pickaxe that we found onto the rack. Now we have everything set up to solve the murder of Missy. What we'll want to do is go up and inspect her inside of the elevator shaft here. After you kind of spot all the clues and whatnot, you should be able to hold A on her in order to solve the case. As always, 5 orbs will kind of disperse from her body and then kind of go all over the map here. I would recommend, I'm basically going to be saying everything's location in relevance or in relativity to the elevator shaft here, but basically there's one right in front of the elevator shaft. There's one just next to the button that we use to call it up. There's one just a little bit past that to the left. There is one at the pickaxe rack to the right of the elevator. And then there's kind of one behind us, and that's the last one. So I'll kind of, based on this location, the elevator shaft's there. We're at the kind of far one next to the train tracks. This is number 1. The elevator itself is number 2. The button is number 3. The pickaxe rack is number 4. And the one off to the kind of far left is number 5. Once we have that chronology, we can visualize. As before, we can watch through each scene or just press Y to skip to the last scene. If done correctly, we will kind of solve the case.
Let me out! The sleeper demands to rise! The sleeper must wake up! The sleeper must wake up! The sleeper must...
And the orbs will return, and then one single orb will exit. If you kind of follow the train tracks or the rail tracks here, it'll stop right here in between these two, I don't know, these two little mechanical pieces. And approach as it lands in order to kind of see the end of this case. Upon its finish, you'll get a small piece of dialogue, and the achievement will unlock as well. or the trophy if you're playing on PlayStation, obviously.
Where are you? I'll deal with your brother. Just go now.
Cool. Now we can continue kind of past all of this in the direction we were using our train car, or the rail car, and we're going to leave it behind. At the junction, we're going to turn left, and we're just going to continue to follow the path. That achievement was for solving the case, by the way. I don't believe you can get lost in this section. You just kind of continue going downward and descending, and then there's a little bit of a maze, but it's not too hard. Just keep descending. There's only one path for you to follow. And then you'll see this gate. And this gate is kind of the entrance. And if you get lost, you can try to come back to this gate and, you know, figure out everything in relation from this gate. But you'll enter, and you'll want to just walk forward. And continue to walk forward. Once you kind of reach the end of the path, turn to your right. And you should notice this board right here, which is kind of a map of this location. We're the X right here, and we're trying to get to this large room right here. To do so, you can kind of back up from the board. Turn to your right, kind of like 45 degrees, maybe a little more than 45 degrees. And then kind of hug the wall through this area, and then follow the path to the back here. We'll see this kind of ghost guy. Very spooky. He'll disappear, and then he'll spook us. Too spooky for me. And what will happen is, essentially, you'll get teleported. Alright, as soon as that happens, what you want to do is turn around, and you'll notice we're back at the gate we started at. Walk forward, and we're going to go basically back to the exact same spot we were just at. So near the end of this hall, we're going to take a little bit of a right-hand turn to the map. Take a little bit of a right-hand turn and follow the wall. Follow the path to the same place, and this time the monster guy will not be here. On your first intersection, you'll want to turn left. You'll end up in the big room with the spiral. Directly in front of you will be a guy you can inspect and a note you can read. And we're going to want to go up the spiral right here. Once we reach the top of the spiral, we can stand on the pedestal and sense this area. And you can manipulate this door in order to open it. And the solution to this door is as follows. I'll kind of pause it right before I'm done. So feel free to kind of catch up and, you know, figure out the exact same stuff. I'll also zoom in on it right before I lock it in so that you guys can see exactly what's going on. All right, so we're on this inner ring right now, right? So those are the symbols that are kind of hard to differentiate, but there's like a, I don't know, a backwards J, there's like a bird, then there's like maybe, I don't know, two birds kind of interlocking, then there's like a Z, and the bottom one will be the upside down W pretzel, which I'm about to lock in, and that's the solution to this door. Once you get the solution to the door, things will begin to shake. There will be a large tentacle arm that comes out of the side and kind of, I don't even know what happens, to be honest. The room ends up filling with water and you kind of drown. As soon as you spawn in, turn to your right and you'll see kind of a little hut as well as a tractor with a wheel on the ground. Walk towards these two items and look towards the ground in order to spot a readable note. You can read the text. It's called The Curse of the Sea Thing. I'll leave you to that if you want. Once you accept this note, you will go back to the real world, and you'll also unlock the achievement or trophy for completing that kind of side story, which the name actually escapes me right now. We'll see it come up on screen, though. There it goes. It's called The Curse of the Sea Thing. Makes sense. Okay, so from where we got that achievement, we can basically turn around, and if we walk forward, we'll end up back kind of where we came from. That's the rail car we pushed a while ago, and we're going to, instead of turning left at that fork in the road, which we turned into to get that achievement, we're actually going to continue down the path of the rail car into the kind of deep blue cave. Hopefully that makes sense. But after pushing that rail car, we took that left-hand detour to grab that random like water monster miscellaneous achievement, and now we're going to be continuing with the main story. So we're walking down the rail path here. It is quite dark, so it can be a little difficult to see, but hopefully that makes sense for you guys. And at the very end of the rail path, there is a left-hand turn. And then we're going to be going through some bubbling water. We do walk quite slowly through it, but yeah. Just keep following this path until you exit back outside.
I could feel two kinds of darkness here in Red Creek Valley. The first you walked into, and with any luck, walked out of. But the other darkness was deeper, stickier, unknowable. And it wanted me to leave.
So now that we crawled outside, you're going to turn to the right and you'll see a large house, and it's connected via power lines to a couple things. But basically 90 degrees, like just to the right of it, there's some cables connecting to the top of the mountain there, and there should be like a lift kind of in the side of the mountain here. You just kind of run towards the hill and you should be able to spot it. It's quite obvious. And at the very bottom of this elevator, you should notice a large spool of like cables, and on top of that, there are some scissors we should take. Now we can go back into that house. This game could really use a compass, by the way. Make things a lot easier. And we should enter the house from this side right here. Now we can walk through the house, up the stairs, and into the back room. And once we're here, we can interact with the overturned pen holder. And we can add the scissors to this collection here. We can then also inspect the victim here. But before we do anything, you'll also want to pick up this large fireman's axe. And then take this fireman's axe and return to where we came from. And in the hallway, before we exit, you can inspect the wall-mounted case to put the fire axe back. Now with the fire axe back, we should be able to return upstairs and solve the case of Dale, I believe his name is. So if you hold A on him, you'll get that blue tint of mystery, and he will dissolve into a couple orbs of light. I'll kind of let them disperse before I show off the locations, but there will be 2 locations in this room with you, and then 3 locations outside. So, right next to the body we found, right next to the door. This one is part of the door one, by the way. They're just kind of spread apart. And then we can run outside, and you should notice one directly in front of you, kind of. So you'll grab that one. And then just continue in that same direction. You should be able to spot another one. and then continue in that same direction towards the mouth of the tunnel, and you should be able to find your last one, and you can now do chronology. Chronology for this one's really easy. This one's the first one, near the mouth of the cave, and basically they're all in perfect order. So the next one, the next closest one is number 2. The one closest to the house is number 3. The one at the top of the stairs is number 4. And then the one next to the body is number 5. And we can visualize the scene. And as always, we can skip through the scenes. And if we've done it correctly, we'll be able to watch the finale.
It didn't have to be this way. You could have helped the sleeper, helped us. But Mom's right. You're a coward.
As always, his body will kind of turn into an orb of light, and we have to follow it. This one actually goes a pretty far distance, so you'll see it kind of go through the window there. Well, actually, these are the ones that are coming back to him. And then once they come back to him, they'll all leave as one bright beam. This one's pretty tough to follow, but you'll want to go downstairs where we came from and then go outside. And it kind of goes straight forward towards the large dam. You see the gigantic dam wall there, right? So we want to walk towards that dam wall, and we'll find like a power generation station. You'll want to go into the generator station and kind of downstairs near the middle here. We should be able to find the kind of end of that case.
Travis,
So you can just kind of watch them until it finishes.
we're up against. Don't listen to what's in your head.
This sleeper was feeding on them. Their hate, their distrust. Ethan's father figured suicide wouldn't.
Once this concludes, there will be a autosave, and you'll unlock the achievement or trophy for solving the case of Dale. Now, next up, we'll be completing the Easter egg that we kind of started. The first thing you want to do here is you'll notice that one of the generators is kind of rotating, and you'll want to help the generator by turning this knob here. You'll tap A. It's kind of hard to get it to properly settle in there, but just continue tapping A. It'll kind of spin a little bit faster. We'll want to turn it off. And now we can exit out of here through, like, going through the building. And then we'll find this kind of damaged part of the dam with a small house to the left. And we can use these stairs and get up on the stairs. Continue forward. And you'll notice there is something along the shore of the beach. Remember that grenade we threw? It actually landed in the water and unfortunately killed this scuba diver. This scuba diver, for whatever reason, was holding a sniper rifle, and both of them have washed up onto the shore. We can now inspect the sniper rifle to complete the Easter egg, and that should unlock yet another achievement or trophy. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually do anything, and that is the end of the Easter egg. You can't take out the sniper rifle and shoot anything, and there's no real story that goes along with it, other than what I just told you. If you want to do a quick achievement check, we are now at 12 out of 14 with 740 out of 1,000 Gamerscore. Alright, so we only have a couple things left. One more case, and then basically just to finish the game. So go back to where we came from. Go back through the power generation station. Make sure that middle wheel there is turned off. You'll notice a door in front of you. This is kind of where we came from. Move the lock, then open the door. And head back towards the large kind of house that we solved Dale's case at. Before entering it, kind of stick to the water. You'll notice a small bridge that kind of goes across the water here. And we'll have to use that. You should be able to just kind of walk across here. Your natural gaming instinct might be to jump, but you just walk across. At the end, you turn to your right and then follow the path through these rocks. In this area, you want to go kind of up the hill and to your left a little bit. You're basically just following the water. You want to keep the water on your right side here until you spot a small bridge and get a dialogue section. You'll cross the bridge and continue following the path.
He would know why I'd come.
You'll see another bridge, and you'll want to cross that. Then turn towards the sun. Walk kind of up the ridge. You should notice a large burned down structure, and you'll have to go inside using the far entrance, where the two lions are. When you go inside here, there's a kind of linear path that goes forward and to the right, and you notice this six-sided kind of diagram of sorts into the ground.
Sorry. Ethan, I can't
And what you need to do is spell Corvus using the rotating blocks, starting with the block that looks like the letter G. Otherwise, you won't be able to spell it based on the letters available to you. CORVUS spells Corvus, which opens the middle plate and allows you to interact with the middle, which then opens a nearby door. So it opens a door right into the basement here. Once inside, you can continue forward, and you'll want to read the note in front of the person, and you'll want to inspect them right after. This is another case. I believe this guy's name is Ed. Hold A in order to go into the blue detective mode as usual. This one's really, really, really easy because it's in a very small area and there's only four beams or four orbs of light or whatever you want to call them. So right where the body is, right next to that, there's a door. Right next to that, there's a table. And then there's like an open doorway. And the order is, the open doorway is number 1. The little kid near the table is number 2. The team trying to open up the big metal door is number 3. And him sitting there is our last one at number 4. And at that point, we can visualize. And as always, I'm going to be skipping the scenes. You're free to watch your scene.
It has to.
Upon the last scene,
The sleeper must not.
you'll see what happens.
Burning the room won't matter, Ethan. The sleeper's inside us now.
Grandpa! Get back!
We all have to die. Even you. Even me.
The orbs of light will return and then disperse as per usual. This time we'll follow it through the door to the left next to the bed
Ethan.
where we can wake up Ethan.
Well, kid, you stopped it. It was horrible, but you stopped it.
Paulo Prospero? Are you really
I'm
here?
sorry, Ethan. I was late. Too late.
You're right. You were too late.
Here.
And that should unlock the achievement called Acceptance. And the only thing we have left
Much as it was
is the final 200 pointer for basically completing the game.
not yet.
At this point, the only thing left to do is to walk forward, look a little bit to your left, and you'll notice a drawing on the wall. You will want to inspect this drawing, and assuming you've completed all of the stories, the game will finish, and you will grab the final achievement. So you'll kind of get some memories here, and then you'll see certain things come up that we've done in the game. One of them is, for example, Traps and Skulls, which just went up on screen. You see a large red X. There's also the space capsule. Also, we've done that, so there's an X there. The House of Portals, that house with all the blue doors, we've done. The Witch Forest, we've done. The Ancient God, which was the kind of sea monster, we've done. And since we've done all 5 of these stories, we can now hold A on this wall and kind of wrap up the game. The rest of the game here is basically just a cinematic or so. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in and watching through with the video. I hope it was helpful, informational, educational. I hope you guys got all of your achievements and trophies out of the way, and I really do hope this was a useful video for you. If it was, I would really appreciate if you dropped a like. It helps the video out. I'd also really appreciate if you shared the video with a friend. You know, if you also have some friends who like to get Gamerscore or trophies, sharing the video is a big help to a channel like mine. Last but not least, a ultra special thanks to the amazing people on Patreon that make videos like this possible. I say this sometimes during indie games, but you'd be surprised not that many people are spending $20 in order to get 1,000 Gamerscore from a game like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. So that support really helps out and lets me make videos like this. And that's completely optional, up to you guys if you'd like to help out the channel. Again, just thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me on this fine evening. And hopefully I see you in one of my future videos. Peace.
Chad, shut up.
You got yourself a faggot for a Sundale.
Travis, let's go. Come on.
Faggot? Ethan, you're a fucking faggot.
Travis, stop it! Oh, shit.
Shit!
Everyone, go! Get out!
Get out! The smoke, it's toxic. Oh, God. What do we do? What do we do?
Also, I usually don't join back into videos like this after I kind of wrap them up, but I realized that as I was watching this last cinematic, I realized that at the beginning of the game, I promised you guys a little bit of an opinion about the game as we wrapped it up. You know what? Vanishing of Ethan Carter, it's not my favorite game in terms of the walking simulator genre. When this game originally came out on PlayStation around 2 years ago, it was pretty good, but at this point, there are a lot of better games in the genre that I would recommend instead. And although it was cool, the storytelling was a little bit unique. It had some cool sections and executed some cool ideas pretty well. I think it's a little bit of a forgettable experience, and I don't really see myself necessarily recommending this game for the full $20 price tag. I would probably recommend it at a discount, and it's definitely worth experiencing once if you have the time and money. But it's definitely not a standout top of the genre type game. That's basically my opinion on it. I hope you guys enjoyed again, and I'll see you next time. Peace. Before wrapping up the video, I will make sure the final achievement unlocks on screen, and I'll show you my full 1,000 Gamerscore. Also, a quick note about the Easter egg. We did have that small graphical glitch where the grenade didn't throw into the river, but ended up not having any problems with the Easter egg unlocking. The sniper rifle still spawned where it was supposed to. So if you did encounter that glitch, you'll obviously by now know that it didn't really affect you in any way.